Hey guys, here I am again. I'm Eric. I talk about Eric stuff. And today I'm just giving you guys a little bit of a update on some of the stuff that I have going on in my life coming up. I am going to move. Now, I don't have a place picked out yet. I don't have a state picked out yet, anything like that, but I am going to move far away from where I currently live. And I'm going to talk about why I'm making this decision and why I'm doing this and all that good stuff. And there's going to be a lot involved with that. So I could do some videos about some of the process and whatnot if you guys are interested. But I don't want to drag this out, so I'm just going to tell you what's going on. And, get you guys in the loop here. I live in Kansas in a place where I grew up. This is my childhood home. I was locked up for a long time, and while I was locked up, I gained ownership of this house. I got out of prison. I came back to this place, and it was very run down. It was not suited to live in, so I lived in an RV for a while, and I eventually got this house good enough to where, it could be lived in. Got a new roof, it's got plumbing, it has electrical, but none of the things that I've done to it are completely finished. Like this room, for example. I had to reframe this entire room last year, the year before last, something like that. And I've had a lot of health problems, so it's not easy to do. And the entire house is like that. It's good enough, but it's definitely not done. And it's an ongoing project, and I'm the one who does all the work. I do all the work myself because I don't have a whole bunch of money. And I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none, So not only is it half complete, but some of the stuff I know for a fact isn't done correctly. Like it's not dangerous or, not to code or anything. It's just not finished or whatever. So this house has been a huge project, and it has been a big money pit, but I own it outright, That's kind of nice. However, I grew up here, and I grew up in a very abusive household. And my family moved here in the 1990s, and we came here from California, and we were never really accepted here. We were outsiders. We moved to a town with less than 150 people, And it's the Bible Belt. It is Republican country, and nothing against Republicans. I personally don't have a political stance, but they're not big fans of Californians. So we moved out here, and we were never really accepted. Me or my sisters, we always kind of felt like outsiders, and my family didn't make it any better. There was a whole bunch of domestic violence and stuff that went on in my household. There was a lot of abuse, When we were kids, we had SRS out here. That they call it DCF now, but we had SRS out here and stuff. They were talking about, our parents abusing us and stuff like that. We had cops out here a lot. Once I was a teenager, when my dad would put hands on me, I'd fight back, and we had the cops out here because me and my dad were fighting. And we had some bad fights, like bar fights, throwing each other through walls, weapons pulled, knives, sticks, even a gun on one occasion. It was bad. It was bad. And it's a small town, so everybody knew about how crazy my household was, And frankly, I don't want to be remembered for that. That's not what I want my legacy to be. It's not who I am. I don't want to be remembered for being violent. I don't want to be violent. I don't want, I don't want that, And I don't want my kids to deal with the same stigma that I dealt with as a kid. I don't want them to be treated as an outsider, just because someone doesn't like their family. I don't think that is fair for them. But beyond that, because of all the abuse that took place here, one of my viewers, Mike the Psych, you've been on this channel for a while now, and I always appreciate seeing your comments. But you said you wouldn't be surprised if I had some sort of PTSD. Prison is a very traumatic place. Well, PTSD is actually what I was diagnosed with in 2017. And the diagnosis didn't stem from prison, actually. It stemmed from my childhood. when I talk about abuse, I'm not saying my parents spanked us. I'm talking about our parents, broke our bones and tied us up. Well, tied me up. And told us on a daily basis, and I quote, "You ain't worth a fucking dime." Our parents told us that regularly. When I was a teenager, I fought back when my dad would put his hands on me. So there are literally holes in the walls of my house from my dad beating me up, Well, I think I've got them all repaired now, maybe. But, there used to be a hole in the door of one of the rooms down next to the floor, and it was my dad's old bedroom. And there was a time when we were fighting, and he threw me on the floor, and he started kicking my ribs in. And he missed, right? And he kicked the door, and just his foot went right through the door. He was a big guy, And then that room became my bedroom for a while. And every day I looked at it, and I was reminded, hey, you know what? That's where Dad was kicking my ribs in. Or I see the room where I was tied up. And I remember laying on the floor there, thinking, you have memories. It's not oh, hey, I remember this. It's the memory happens immediately, and you start experiencing all the emotional content that came with that experience. That's one of the theories behind PTSD is that people who are in very extreme situations, the emotional content can be so hard to deal with that it isn't processed. The intellectual content is processed by the brain, but the emotional content is not. It hasn't been dealt with. And, without getting too far into that, my point here is there are things that are linked to my past that I experience here every day that I don't really want to experience. I don't want to be in a certain place mentally. I don't want to think about certain things. And it's hard to move forward and forget about those things if you see them every single day. It's very, very difficult. So that is the biggest reason that I'm moving. The past. It's just, echoes of the past all around me, reminding me of a lot of shit that I don't want to be reminded of, and I'm sorry for my profanity. It's kind of how I am. I talk to you guys how I would talk to someone sitting down across from me. You know what I'm saying? One of the other big reasons why I want to move is health reasons. You guys know I've been sick a lot the past few years. Hospitalizations, just, surgeries, all sorts of stuff. And it doesn't seem to be getting a lot better. And where I live, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of great doctors. If I want to see a good doctor, I got to drive, an hour and a half, 2 hours to go see a good doctor. And then, I got to wait months between appointments because they're in very high demand. You know what I'm saying? One of the big health problems that I have is I'm allergic to everything in this area. Pretty much all the vegetation that grows around my house, it's all stuff that I'm allergic to. Mold allergies, I'm very allergic to many different types of molds, and Kansas is pretty much the worst state to live in if you have mold allergies. So I want to go someplace that doesn't, contribute to my health problems, and maybe I can get back on my feet a little bit more. Talking about the house and how it's a project and stuff like that. Sick and doing a home renovation or remodel or something like that, pretty tough. So I have health problems that I want to stay on top of. Another big reason for me wanting to move is my business. I have a video production business. I help small YouTube channels, and I help people on social media with branding and things like that. And I'm getting to the point where I need to expand my business on the one hand, but on the other hand, I live in the middle of nowhere. Who am I going to hire? Everybody out here is a farmer or a gas station worker, or they work at the local grocery store. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to employ somebody to work with me on some of this stuff or train somebody. There's remote stuff that you can do, but really I would like to have people that I can talk to who are somewhat local and even just be in an area that has more industry for video production, content creation, something that is a little bit more modern. You know what I'm saying? A lot of rural areas are kind of old-fashioned, and this one is included. It has some very old-school beliefs and old-school, attitudes. I remember when my daughter was born, I was down at the little grocery store, and I had a guy ask me, about my kid or something to that effect, or ask me how I was doing. I said, I'm doing great, just had a kid. And his response was, well, you shouldn't be having children if you don't have a real job. So there's not a lot of support for this kind of business out here. You know what I'm saying? Maybe with the younger generation. So maybe in 10 or 15 years it'll be more marketable, but right now it's not super marketable. So there's business reasons. And on top of that, my family deserves better. There's better business opportunities elsewhere, but there's also better job opportunities elsewhere. Minimum wage in Kansas is still $7.25 an hour. I was working as a framing carpenter for a year, and the most I made in that time frame, I think, was $12 an hour. Not very much money. So there's not a lot of money here. There's just not. And my family deserves better. My wife works, and she wants to pursue her dream. She wants to have a big ranch and, work with horses and animals and stuff like that. And I'm all for it. I'm all for chasing your dreams, even if it means there's risk involved, which there almost always is, at least I think. But what do you do? Do you just stay with what's comfortable and what works, or are you going to try to take advantage of whatever resources you can and build something for yourself and build some financial security for your family? I think that's a great idea. And, there's so many people who complain about working conditions. Oh, I can't make what I'm worth. Oh, I can't find a job. Or, I don't want to work for this sort of person, or my employer doesn't appreciate me. They work us, like we're slaves or something. They expect us to bust our ass, and they don't give us anything in return. They pay us peanuts, and we don't get any benefits. There's a lot of people who complain about that, and I'm not saying those complaints aren't legitimate, but this is the United States, okay? If you are willing to put in the work, you can absolutely start your own business, and you can make it successful. And if you fail, you can try again, right? I mean, you can do that. And that's my mentality going into this. We can have a better life. We just have to work for it, and we'll be all right. There's one more reason why I want to move, and it's a big one, and it's the violent offender registration. Kansas has a offender registration for a lot of things. A lot of states have offender registration for sex offenders. If you committed rape or some sort of sexual crime against a child or something like that, you're going to be on a registry, okay? But Kansas has a sex offender registration. Sorry for bumping the mic. Kansas has a sex offender registration, a violent offender registration, and a drug offender registration. And some of the offenses require you to register for life. And what that entails is 4 times a year, you have to go to the sheriff's office. You have to give them all of your phone numbers, all of your vehicle information. So any vehicle that you drive, doesn't matter if it's yours, you have to give them the VIN number, the license plate number, all that stuff, year, make, model. You have to keep that current. any email addresses or social media profiles, so Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, anything like that, you have to have registered with the sheriff's office. They need to know about it. If you leave your residence for more than a few days, you have to let the sheriff's office know about it, and you have to let the sheriff's office in whatever county you are going to know about it, unless you're going out of state to a state that doesn't have a violent offender registration. But then if you do that, you're supposed to file an itinerary with the KBI 30 days in advance. Anytime you update, though, so let's say I'm supposed to go into the sheriff's office 4 times a year, every 3 months. I'm supposed to go in and register, every 3 months. But beyond that, anytime my information changes, I have to go in and register within 3 days of that change being made. So let's say I get a new email address. Let's say I want to create a new YouTube channel. All right, well, what that requires me to do is go into the sheriff's office, tell them the name of the YouTube channel, the email address that's associated with it, all that good stuff, and I need to do that within 3 days. If I fail to do so, it's a registration violation, and I could be put in prison for that. That's not a good thing, right? It's a new felony charge. There are people who have gotten more time on a registration violation than they got for their initial crime. And for me, I got to register for life as a violent offender if I don't move to a state that doesn't have a violent offender registration. And the other thing about it is it's on you, okay? The sheriff's office where I live got a new lady doing the registration, and they're changing some stuff up. They're only going to do registration stuff on Tuesday and Thursday. And, if they're not there, that's not their fault. That's on you, right? So if my phone gets shut off, okay, I have to go tell them about it within 3 days, and I have to hope that those 3 days are close enough to a Tuesday or a Thursday that I don't catch a registration violation. It's incredibly impractical. I'm not criticizing the people who enforce this stuff. I don't have a problem with my local sheriff's department. The law itself is the problem, right? And it's a state thing. There's a lot of states that are doing the same thing. Missouri's trying to do a violent offender registration. Pennsylvania's trying to do one. Texas, I think, has one. Oklahoma has one. Montana. There's a lot of places that have violent offender registrations, or they're trying to get one put in place. And I'm not willing to go back to prison over an email address. I have a family, I have a wife, kids, etc. If I'm not here, their dad isn't in their life. Over what? An email address? A phone number? You know what I'm saying? It's the risk reward isn't there. It doesn't make sense. And I've even had job offers in other states, and I've stayed here and I've stayed here and I've stayed here, but I don't have to. I'm not on parole. There's no law that says I can't move to a state without a violent offender registration. So why am I still here? This house is a huge project. It's costing me a shitload of money to put it together. And I could have a nicer house that I don't have to work on with a lot less stress and work and, Anyway, that's usually what I say when I'm getting ready to wrap stuff up. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of stuff involved with me getting the funds together and actually getting moved. And I'm going to talk about that in another video. Maybe I'll do a series where I'm chronicling my process, because I might have to go up there first, wherever we're going, and I might have to go in my car because we might not have a property to start with. Loan approvals, stuff, they take time. And a lot of times you have to have a job there and show that you have income and all that good stuff before they'll give you the loan. But it's hard to get a job in a place if you don't live there and you actually live in another state. So I might end up living in a car again for a little while and doing some construction or, video editing or whatever I have to do to hustle and show that I have that income. That way I can finish getting the loan secured and get my family up there too. So, I'm Eric. I was talking about Eric's stuff. I hope you guys are doing well. I will see you all later.
I am a child.